but I actually finished your book, We Speak for Ourselves, this weekend. I really loved it. But the bio in the book says that describes you as like a person who tells the truth as you see it. How do you work that into your writing? How do you do that?
I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with writing is because it gave me an opportunity to meet people I would never come across in my life. You know, I wasn't gonna have the opportunity to sit down and have a drink with Toni Morrison, right? But I can go through her body of work and just understand how she processes thoughts, how she sees the world, the dreams she had for her characters, right? I'm not gonna be able to bump into Langston Hughes on Miami Street, but I can comb through his body of work and I can understand that. So I feel like I fell in love with these people who I would never have a chance to meet, and I just wanted to be able to contribute. And the best way to contribute for me has been through journalism and through personal essay. It's telling those personal stories, making fun of yourself, making fun of how you was raised, but also shedding light on some of the darker things that we need to talk about.
What was the first piece that you published?
So the first piece I published, like what you would call a lyric essay, and no one read it. Like no one. It was like one of them journals where I think you have to pay them to publish. You give them money, they'll publish you. But the first piece I've published that got some traction from a publication was called Too Poor for Pop Culture, and that piece was about how technology is class-based. I'm sitting around playing cards with some old friends, which is wild that I'm thinking about it because pretty much everyone from that essay is dead. Two died from COVID, one died, she was on dialysis, but we're playing cards and they were talking about a story that was like weeks old. It just blew my mind that there's a whole world out here, Twitter world, Instagram world, all of these different worlds out here. And if you don't have a cell phone, or if you have, at the time, this was 2014, so if you had maybe a government phone, like a government flip phone, you don't even have apps. So you're not even tapped into where a whole segment of America is getting their information from. And I just thought, I thought it was fascinating, and I wanted to write about it.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing you said, that access to information is class-based. Can you talk a little more about that, actually?
Yeah. If you want to know what's happening in your local government and you click to read an article and then a paywall pops up, class-based. If you don't have a newspaper box in your neighborhood, the newspaper boxes are in the more affluent neighborhoods, class-based. If the person who you want to get the information from only makes official statements on Twitter and you don't know how to work the app, which has changed rules in the last 3 weeks 10 times, class-based, right? So a lot of things, a lot of the information we receive, we take it for granted. If you have the luxury of receiving that information, because everybody, some people, I know when I was coming up, and when my grandma was working 2 jobs and doing what she had to do to get through her week, she didn't have time to really kick it and just read a newspaper to see what how the city council just fumbled. She didn't have the luxury to do that because she would have to rest her feet and get up and go to work the next day. So, again, class-based.
That's a good point. Even just keeping up with the news requires a certain amount of time. Free time.
Reading time is a luxury.
Yeah. And when it comes to, this event is about the power of free speech, power of journalism, all these things that are guaranteed by the First Amendment. What is it that you value most about the First Amendment, and how does that guide your work?
For me, I feel like we still have so much work to do. So while I value I'm honored that I get the opportunity to speak. I get the opportunity to partner with these publications, these networks, to put out shows and do these different things. I'm frustrated because I know everyone does not have that opportunity, right? It's in the Constitution, but it's not benefiting everyone. Somebody sitting in a prison cell right now who's probably been sitting there for over 10 years for a crime they didn't commit, and they're silenced. They're not getting opportunity to speak because how the system is structured and set up. And I try my best to extend my platform to anything that's going to advocate towards that. A lot of the issues that, there's a new issue every week. Like there's a new joke. There's, there's famous person dies, internet's sad. New joke comes out about a low vibrational plate or a Drake album, people forget. This is how information works. It constantly changes, but there's too many people, good people, honest people who aren't able to keep up with that. So I try to keep that in mind. I celebrate how far we've come, but I know we'll never truly get where we deserve to be until everybody can play. And right now, everybody can't play.
And I think there's like a disagreement sometimes about the First Amendment where some people are like, this is a great equalizer, now everyone can speak. And other people are like, well, if you live in an unequal society, then it's not everybody has equal opportunity to use their First Amendment rights.
Absolutely, and we see it every day. A lot of us, we don't make it out of the bubbles that we live in. We're totally surrounded by people who kind of socially share the same things. So you don't really have access or contact. And I see it like, so if I'm talking to one of my friends that I grew up with, if I'm talking to one of my friends that's incarcerated, if I'm talking to one of my friends who went to Harvard, these are all the three different conversations, and they all are approaching it in a different way. And in this country, the person who has the most things has the most power, and it's not fair to a lot of people. I've been able to survive and function because I'm, early on, when I first started out in publishing, I acknowledged how these systems work. I know the kind of stories I wanted to publish year one, the editors would be like, no, absolutely not. And then the dynamic has changed by year two, year three. I won this award. Oh, okay, well, you can say this now. Or you can publish this now. Or you can put this out now. But these things didn't even exist. And I'm talking like within the past 6-7 years.
It's like a video game. You have to unlock different levels.
You have to unlock different levels, which means the system is flawed.
I mean, that makes me think of one of the most interesting things in We Speak for Ourselves is this idea of fake wokeness, that you have people who speak for communities they're not necessarily a part of or might not necessarily have ties to. And they're able to do that, I think, because of, again, the class argument that they have more power than like some of the people who are actually in these communities. Can you talk a bit more about that?
It's the time we living in, and it's kind of dangerous because I think we're putting unnecessary pressure on people to be things they're not. I'll give you a clear example. This is, no disrespect to anyone here, but I've been called activist like 6 times tonight. I've never in my life said I was an activist, ever. I've never wore open-toe sandals. I never had cut-off jean shorts. I never drew a picket sign. Like, I've never made phone calls to my local politician. I give money to people who need money when I can. I go and support people who I can. I'm a good person. I mentor people who come from where I come from in this vicious industry of television and media. That's not activism. That's just a good person. And I only saying this because I know activists who like, oh man, I was up for 6 days straight organizing. I'm like, what, your socks? They're like, nah, I've been, making phone calls, and there's big love and respect to that. But I went on I used to do cable news a lot, and I got nauseous because I just felt like it was like the biggest waste of time. Like, I can't remember what they paid, but it wasn't a lot of money, but it was wild because they would send a limo from somewhere, like in DC, all the way to Baltimore to pick me up. to take me all the way to a news station, put me in a room, have me speak on something like, D. Watkins here, Negro expert. Black people aren't being treated fairly. Okay, thank you. We're going to the commercial break. And then I would get in the limo and they would take me all the way back home. And I'm like, this is like a big waste of my time. It's not making a difference. I'm not inspired. And then sometimes I would watch my hit on the way home, and it would say, D. Watkins, Black Lives Matter activist. And I'm like, I've never worked for Black Lives Matter. I'm not against them, but I don't know, it's not fair to them, because what if I said something crazy that disrespected what they was trying to do? I know my life matters. But that's an organization and a company and an infrastructure, so it's not really fair. It's not really fair to just, if I called you a 1980s NBA expert. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't just put a title on you.
I could. No,
Are you?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
I didn't know if you.
That would have been cool if I was.
I didn't know if you spent a lot of time on YouTube. But you put these you put labels. We put labels on people because it sounds good, or because and it's disrespectful to activists who are doing the work. It's disrespectful to people who are locked into what they're locked in on. And as an interviewer, I've interviewed so many writers or celebrity memoir people who just say activists, and it's almost like you have to say it. And then if you ask them, well, what do you do? And it's like, I tweet. Okay, yeah. Your tweets matter. I know they do. And look where we at. Look where we at. Look how far we have to go. So that I'm kind of sensitive with that.
Yeah, I think that, especially because the term activism, it can mean different things, but there are people who believe in change and want to promote change, but there's other ways to do that aside from activism. Like you've mentioned in a lot of your writing about art having the ability to promote change. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I think for me, writing has transformed me. Reading has transformed me. Understanding why this country is the way it is. Understanding why, so I could be sitting, my grandma, when I was born, was Lafayette Housing Projects. And I could sit back and be like, well, why does my grandma live in Lafayette Housing Projects, right? Is it because she doesn't work hard? Is it because she doesn't have bootstraps? I see her working hard every day, and all her boots have straps on them. So it can't be that, right? But now I'm reading and I'm studying and I'm learning about FDR and I'm learning about the GI Bill, and I'm learning that Black people who fought in World War II were supposed to be able to come home and get guaranteed education, which enhances social mobility, guaranteed mortgage, right? It's how you build wealth in this country. And they fought in the war and they came home and they were discriminated against, right? So now I'm understanding the Constellation Prize was we didn't get the suburbs, we got the projects, right? This is how my family ended up in this space, in this particular time, and what they had to build from. So if your great whatever fought in the war and came home and bought a house, and that house, increased in value, you could take that money and send everybody to college, and you don't have your own student loans, because if you wanted to go, you could go too. But if you're Black, you can't own the projects. I know the baby from Cash Money tried to buy Magnolia like 10 years ago, but you can't own the project. So you're not getting equity. You're not building that generational wealth. So you're gonna go as far as the people who raised their people, and that's like a rule of thumb in this country. And reading, so now I have these ideas, right? This is me consuming art, someone's book, someone's research. It's all art to me, and it's giving me the opportunity to say, so this is your origin. This is how you're starting out. These are the things you have to do to change that. You're not here because you're a bad person, or you're not here because, for whatever reason. You're here because this has been part of your family's journey in this country. So what are you going to do to contribute to it in a positive way? And with that is how, and I tell a lot of people this, they trip out when I say it, but Even though my father's from here, my grandfather's from here, my mother, both sides of my family, right? I'm like the first real American citizen. And my family's been here for generations since slavery. I'm the first real American citizen because I can buy houses. I went to some really good schools. I can travel whenever I want to. I can do whatever I want to. And that's what the American dream is supposed to be. And nobody in my family has ever had that until I was born in the 80s, which is crazy, but it's how the country is and how it's set up. And art taught me how to realize that and then try to carve out my own narrative to create something different.
Once you know where you're coming from, you can figure out where you're going.
Yeah, sorry for the long answer.
No, that's a great answer. I love that about, that.
I went to an event recently and I was just listening to the guy speak and I'm like, wow, these answers, I'm not satisfied with them. Something about them, they're just not, I just don't want people to not be satisfied with the answer.
I think that was a great answer, especially just about like being the first American in your family because you're the first one who can actually take advantage of all the things that America is supposed to be. That's, or at least some of the things. And that kind of, okay. So Kathy was mentioning the Freedom Forum puts out a survey about the First Amendment, and one of the results that we got back is that 61% of Americans think that the First Amendment can help bridge divides in the country. What do you think of that? Do you think like talking about issues is enough to bridge divides?
First Amendment has been around for a long time, and I still feel pretty divided. I mean, I think it should. I think it should. I think that we should have complex conversations. We should talk about how we see the world. We should be able to understand someone else's experience in comparison to our own and find out what that common ground is. But then look at Congress. look at your government, right? Look at your government and look how they do business, right? So in the perfect world, it would make us all better. But do we do it, and how do we get there? How do we actually make that happen?
Well, that makes me think, like in your book, you talk about there's a difference between people who are intellectually curious and people who are just, they just don't care. And how like those people that are intellectually curious, you can talk to them and they want to explore ideas. And then there are people who just really don't care.
Just childish. Like the world works the way they think the world works. They have all of the answers. You can't tell them anything about anything. And if you had one experience in your life that doesn't add up to their, whatever their life plan is, you're a bad person. Is like, is what we're dealing with. And I think we have to talk about that and we have to fight it. And we have to be honest with ourselves, with our beliefs, and say how we feel, even if it's dangerous, or we won't grow. We won't grow. We'll be the same. We'll be just like this 50 years from now.
So what would you say? I mean, you work with students. You've talked a lot with students, and there's a room full of students here. What would you say students should do, like when it comes to exercising their First Amendment rights, their free speech?
Just be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest in your essays. Be honest on your projects. Be honest with your professors. Be honest in the classrooms. But most importantly, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself and hold your friends accountable. Hold yourself accountable, but hold your friends accountable too, because it's the only way we grow. I know we get sold a lot of these false narratives and these fake realities on how, grind hard and work all of the time and everything's perfect and we make no mistakes and your life is great and everybody has the perfect sandwich and the perfect reel and the perfect, arrangement of photos on their wall, right? But it's not reality. If you didn't have bad days and if you didn't make mistakes, then you wouldn't be able to appreciate the good days or learn any lessons. And it's very, very, very important to know that. Mistakes, messing up, misspeaking, not understanding someone's, not knowing all of the rules, but listening and learning so that you don't hurt other people. All of these things are important and it's part of the process. None of us are like born programmed. We're all works in progress, and that's okay.
I think that's like the perfect note to turn it over to you guys for your questions. And we have 2 students with mics. At least 1 student with a mic. Oh, 2 students, yes.
Good afternoon, Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tiara. I had a question for D. Watkins. Two questions. First question is, have you ever heard of First Amendment auditing? And if you have, what is your opinion on that?
I never heard of First Amendment auditing.
Okay, so First Amendment auditing, basically, I guess any public accessible space to us, if we ever wanted to go and request, do a FOIA request, we can do that. That's freedom of information as well. There are certain forms you can ask for when you go in and get certain information. If you want information for different documents, different accessible things, you can definitely do that. A lot of people sometimes go a place and see if they could record places. There's a certain way of doing it. It kind of, I guess that's the backlash or the other side of people questioning whether we can record in certain spaces or not.
I think we should be able to. I think we should be able to record in pretty much any space, unless it's like, I don't like when people record like, oh, here's a homeless guy on the street. I'm gonna give him $1. Look at me give this homeless guy $1. Look how great I am, right? Hold the camera, baby. Look how great. I'm not into that, but I definitely think we should record our public officials. We should record police officers. We should record. We should be able to record whatever we want to record, especially if what we're doing is going to help other people. If it's just for like a joke or to be funny or to embarrass somebody, then no. But if it's like with the intent of helping other people, then it becomes a different conversation.
All right, thank you. I didn't know if I had time for another question or not. It's very small. Do it? Okay. Also, this is just like an open question if anybody else wanted to take it on too. How do you feel about the misinformation and disinformation campaigns to control information?
The expert.
Mostly I feel bad about it. Aside from being a Freedom Forum fellow, my day job is I'm a voting rights lawyer, and I feel like just the misinformation and disinformation about every aspect of elections, like some of it's intentional so people can't exercise their right to vote. Some of it's just as bad as just saying like, oh, the polling location you go to has closed. You can really do some terrible things with mis and disinformation. That said, like, I think that the problem is that it can be so hard to sort between what's true and what's false online. So as a First Amendment advocate, I'm inclined not to believe in like censoring things, but as I do think that there are certain things that are absolutely false, and it's up to us, up to the media, up to everybody really, just to present a counter narrative and say, nope, that's not true. Those are lies. We got, and again, I think of this a lot in the election context, but in any context, you have to have people like actually like pushing back. If you're not going to resort to just censoring stuff, which I'm not a big fan of censorship, then you need to have that, like other people, like holding people accountable.
The problem too is like people look at these made up articles. They look for these made up articles, and if you find one thing on the internet that co-signs whatever you already thought, you just dive deep in. Look! It's in made up media.net. It has to be real.
See, this guy agrees with me. Yeah.
So that's the dangerous part too, and it's only growing. So that's what makes it more difficult, is that it's only growing.
Good evening. My name is Canary Wagstaff. I heard that you grew up from Baltimore and you grew up from the projects. So I just wanted to really know what motivated you. I could tell just from hearing your story that you kind of was like, I wouldn't say the outsider, but the different one in the community. What kind of motivated you to keep, doing what you do?
I don't think I was never. I don't think I was different. I wish I was. I wish I was cool enough to not be a follower, but but I wasn't. I think for me the biggest thing for me was when I became a reader, because my neighborhood and the 3-4 little blocks that we stayed on was the most glamorous thing in the world to me, and I was so locked in to that mentality that it would be crazy for me to make a friendship with a person who wasn't from where I was from. That is crazy, right? But that was the mentality I had, and reading just opened my mind up. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake. First book that changed my life was this book called The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. And a nurse just gave it to me. And I wasn't gonna read it, but it was literally nothing on TV, and the hospital had like 3 channels. It was like The Fresh Prince, this show called Mama's Family. You probably never heard of it, but it's about like a mama and her family. And like MASH, right? So it's literally nothing on, and I read this book, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know you can talk about this kind of Black experience in a book. I didn't know, you can have a whole book about a drug family. I didn't know you can talk about these types of sneakers and this kind of lifestyle in the book. And books are like definitive. So once you see yourself in the book, it means something. It does something for you. It matters. It does something for your self-esteem, your confidence. It makes you feel like you count too. And that sent me on a spiral from just reading anything that she wrote to reading her contemporaries. I think it was like Nathan McCall at the time, to reading the people who came before them, is how I got into Morrison and these different people, and then stretching out to reading like the Beat Poets and On the Road and Naked Lunch until I, sitting there reading Fyodor Dostoevsky, The Idiot. It turned into a thing where I wanted to know about different people, different cultures, different ideas, and how these things work. So reading was the big thing for me, and that's when doors started opening up, and I started to see myself in a different way and change from there. But I definitely wasn't cool enough to be walking around the neighborhood like Andre 3000 playing a flute. I did everything everybody else did.
Hi, I'm E.R. Chip. I'm a professor here in the School of Global Journalism and Communication. Social media platforms have lots of power. They're not necessarily bound by the First Amendment because they are private, but they do exercise a lot of influence over speech. So my question is, while we sometimes feel very good when those we don't like are banned from social media, I could think of a former president and even Kanye West. How do you feel about banning people from social media platforms, given our tradition of free speech?
Well, the key thing you said is that they're private. So, if I came to your house and I took my shoes off and went in your fridge and drank right out the juice container, I'm sure I would be banned. I'm sure I wouldn't get invited back. However, while I understand how important it is to shut down hate speech, to shut down people who are being negative or trying to do things to intentionally harm people, there's another side of me who I want to know. I want to know. I don't like subtle racism. I don't like sneaky, bank loan behind the door, the kind of racism. I need mine right in front of my face so I can know exactly to go this way or to go that way. And I think a lot of times when we ban these people or when we try to stop them from spreading their ideas, I think we're not, I'm pretty sure there's people, especially from this social media generation, who forget actually how racist Donald Trump is. His education secretary, Betsy DeVos, the DeVos family is notoriously racist. like racist, like when they owned the Orlando Magic, the players said they used the N-word so much you would think it made their teeth whiter, right? And this person was the Secretary of Education, right? So for me, I understand why we would want to silence a person who's trying to intentionally hurt people, but at the same time, for me personally, I want to know. I want to know what business to not support. I want to know who to stay away from. I want to know how you perceive or how you think about people that look like me. I don't, I want to know.
Sometimes pushing all the worst people onto one social network together might not be the greatest idea.
Hello, sir. Snap.
I thought y'all was great. It's like y'all great rap battle.
Nice. All right. My name is Jelani. I'm a junior. I had a question about some of the obstacles that you felt like you faced. You mentioned that you felt like you had to get your rep or like some awards to be able to speak your truth. Like, how do you deal with that when you feel like in order to speak what you know is the truth and what your community needs to hear, like you have to do certain things to be able to have that freedom? Like, how did that affect you, like mentally?
The biggest thing for me is realizing, is thinking I had it figured out, and then realizing I had it wrong. And I think that was the biggest obstacle. And I'm so lucky that I learned that early in my career. When I first started publishing, hit the city quickly. Like 2013, I didn't know it. No one knew anything about me as far as being a writer, except for maybe 8 people, right? Published an article in 2014. I think I won like 5 awards that year. I'm in all of these different newspapers. I'm getting the opportunity to publish it in bigger publications. I'm traveling. I'm doing all of these different things. And it all happened really, really quickly. And because it happened so quickly, I thought, okay, boom. There's a lane for me to be a person from the inside writing out. And I thought I had it figured out, because you are looking at my neighborhood, or you looking at people who come from places where I come from, and you are getting it wrong. Nobody's reporting on those stories from the perspective of the people that come from it. So I thought I had it figured out, but I didn't, because the people where I come from was not reading the work. One of my homeboys was poking fun at me because I was on the front cover of the Baltimore Sun art section like back in 2014, and his mom like laminated it and she hung it like over top of his photo, right? And I was like, if she could pick, I would be a better son. And when I'm making a joke, he's telling me to, he's asking me, he gave me a letter to read, and I'm reading the letter, and he's like, no, read it aloud. He said out loud, read it out loud, right? So as I start to read it, I'm like, yo, he can't read. This is my homie. This is my big homie. He may be like 10 years older than me. This is my big homie. He 10 years older than me. And I'm like, yo. And he's bigger than me too. He's like 7 foot tall, 7 foot wide, right? He's like he's like an Escalade with Nike boots that don't tie all the way up. Like the boots don't even tie all the way up. So I said, yo, I'm not gonna read it, but I'll teach you how to read. So he said, read the letter. And he's bigger than me, so I read it, right? I didn't want any trouble. So I read the letter, and I told him, offer's on the table, bro. I'll teach you. And I'm like, wow, I think I'm doing something, because all of these people are tapping into my world who don't even probably care about us. But the people who I care about the most aren't getting to work. And I redirected everything I did. I switched up the language of my books, the content, how I write, what I chose to focus on, and what I wanted to do with my career, and that big push to get inside those schools, because I know I didn't get it. So I was hurt by not getting what I needed to get as a young reader coming up, and I still don't want a lot of young people from everywhere, but especially Baltimore City Public Schools, to go through the same thing. That was my biggest obstacle. Now, when you get to the publishing world, you fight in different battles, especially if you're like the only black person in the newsroom. Or like you're the only black, or you might not be the only black person in the newsroom, but you might be the only one to actually be around other black people in real life. You know what I'm saying? So you got to fight for things you shouldn't have to fight for. I'm not going to tell this whole story because I know other people got questions, but I'll say this. When I got my first book deal, they offered me 2 deals. The first deal was to do it with a ghostwriter, even though they knew me as a writer. The deal with the ghostwriter was $450,000, and I was flat broke, right? But I said, hell no, absolutely not. I'm a writer. I have a story, but I'm a storyteller too. I'm going to write my own book. Okay, sir, we'll give you a deal to write your own book. All right, bet. So how much money is it? Guess what that $450 turned into? $15,000. That is racism. Do it with the white guy and get the $450 and he get 35% and I get the rest, or do it by yourself and starve that, like tighten your belt up and stretch that $15,000 over the time you need to write that book. And that's the game. That's the game. But we changing it, we working, so, we here.
I had one more question. How you doing, sir? My name is Justice Georgie. I'm a ASCON major. I'm a senior here at Morgan. Me being from Baltimore, born and raised, I really appreciate you coming down. So basically, my question is, in recent events, we've seen, the cancellation of not only Kyrie Irving but also Kanye West. So being like a writer yourself and believing in the First Amendment, do you feel as though like you said something earlier that that you feel as though that we should say anything as well as speak dangerously because we should say how we feel. Well, it seems as though being a black man, especially of power, there's a certain of monetization, right? And you feel as though do you feel like being a black man of power, you have to walk on eggshells because somebody like Donald Trump, openly racist, right, can easily say anything he wants, even though if he might get banned on Twitter, the money doesn't stop from him, Mm-hmm. He's still gonna run for president in 2024. And being somebody being somebody like Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, their career is gone, endorsements and everything. So being a writer, how are you now gonna move forward after seeing these 2 black celebrities get canceled overnight? How are you gonna now live your life, live your truth, and now of course write your own stories?
The good thing about what I do is that I have no interest in talking about religion, politics, or any of the things that whatever their situations was. I have no interest. I have no interest, no need. It doesn't keep me up at night. It's not nothing that I think about. It doesn't even come across my radar. But what I will say is this is a game. Understand the rules of the game. The rules for Donald Trump is not the rules for me. He started out with $1 million. I started out in the hole. You understand what I'm saying? He got his first $1 million from his peoples to start a business, right? My father owed me $45 right now. The rules are not the same. So what am I gonna do? Am I more valuable if I'm fighting to get books for people in Baltimore City public schools, or am I more valuable on the internet trying to tell you whatever I subscribe to? Am I important? Is it more important for me to feed people and look out for people and create opportunities? Or is it more important for me to say what I want to say on the internet? The internet stuff, it don't matter. It don't matter. They more powerful creating opportunities. You're not powerful just by running your mouth online. You know what I mean? All right, bet. Okay, so now you tweeted this and said that, now what? It's people that's still hungry. So if you care, put the phone down and go feed somebody. For me, but that's for me,
Hello, everybody. My name is Kendra Pender, and I'm a junior strategic communications major. My question for you, Mr. Watkins, was based on a comment you made saying that people speaking for other people in communities, no, my bad. People can't speak for other people that aren't in their own community. So say people of middle class speaking for people of lower class, does that mean that you believe no matter how much research a person does on a specific topic through secondhand experiences, through web searches, if they don't have the firsthand experience, is it non-relevant that their, idea of what it is basically isn't true?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because I don't want that to be taken out of context, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. One, if you're advocating for people, there should be some accountability, right? And I'll tell you exactly where the whole idea came from. I'm at this thing at this it's a book thing in London, and we're backstage, and it's a really famous guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but I'm just gonna tell you what happened. So people are having a conversation, and this is like maybe right after the big Coates reparations article, or maybe like it was around that time. Even the article was out, or the conversation was starting to, come up. So it was around that particular time. And the guy said, yeah, because, black people, we don't want money. We just want a free education. Keep your millions. Just give us free books in college. And I'm looking at him like, dog, I want the millions. Like, like, why would you feel so confident in saying that? And we see it all of the time. Like, we see it all of the time. So when the squeegee guy had got locked up, I saw all of these people who never interact with those young men, who never even drive back. They have no connection to don't even know what's going on, saying everything these people want and need. And it's like, first of all, how come everybody gets to talk about not being a monolith, but then when you talk about certain black experiences, surprise, we're a monolith? You know what I mean? When we just because somebody's from a rough neighborhood, it doesn't mean they can't love manga cartoons. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they don't want to be a 5-star chef. Everybody's not holding a pistol and working on a freestyle. People, we're complex as any other people in the world, right? But we're the only group of people, like I'll say this. If I came on this stage and I said, and I seen this with Pete Buttigieg. This is the example, coming Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg went on, he flew back to South Bend because someone was shot by a police officer, and a woman was trying to talk to him. She was trying to talk. She was like, it was a black woman. She was like, well, why did you fire the first black police chief? And you want to be president, this, that, and the third, and you want our votes? And he's like, whatever, I don't need your vote, right? He was very dismissive to her. And the next day, he went on Morning Joe. He apologized, and he said, well, I should have handled the situation differently, and I got a chance to talk to Reverend Al when he told me some things. And I'm looking like, dog. So you got smart with this black lady who's a constituent because you were mayor, and you apologized to Al Sharpton, make it make sense. So if I did something, right? And I'm like, and I came and I'm like, oh man, I really want to repair my relationship with the white community. Who's the white Al Sharpton? Like, is it Ellen? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who's the white Al? Like, yo, I went on Ellen, and you said, you know what? Even though I was mean to you, I talked to Ellen, and she said, you know what? You're good. She'll be okay. Let the healing begin. And it's not, and that's why I have oppressed. No disrespect to anybody who wants to fight for people who aren't being represented, but don't exploit them. Don't use that story so you get your little book deals and your little budgets and your little per diems and all that. Don't do that. Like, open the door up. Are you introducing other writers? Are you introducing other creators? Are you putting other people on? Are you creating opportunities? Are you letting people know you are not the only voice? You are not the expert. You're just one person with perspective, but we're trying to open it up so that everybody can have an opportunity to be able to speak for themselves and architect their own, right there, be in control of their own narrative. Who is the white Al Sharpton, if anybody can just curious. Feel like a good job.
D, what's up, D? I hope all is well with you, man.
Please, bro.
I just wanted to say, I remember reading Black Boy Smile, and I was in the emergency room from a heroin overdose, and that book when you talked about taking the camping trips, being that little boy who just got away from the hood, like it just gave me a vision. Like I remember going on that trip. I remember meeting up boat checks and taking that trip, and like that was the best that some of us got in that neighborhood. And I remember sitting around, and it was kind of embarrassing to read. Like, you know, you knew the answer in school, but you didn't want to raise your hand because you was labeled like smart. You know, you was labeled like he wants to be you. Oh, you think you're a nerd, you know? And I was sitting in the house and I seen this forum thing, and I got to be honest with you, the First Amendment, it got taken away from me from the police a long time ago.
There we go.
You know, the police took my. I still like don't believe in it. I don't have freedom of speech. I'm 40 years old. Like, I probably could talk in my house, but the police, I suffer from all kinds of trauma from them because, you know, you say something and you go to central bookings. You know what I mean? Like all I did was say no. All of a sudden I wound up in central bookings. But I mean, I just felt like this was the proper time to come and just give you your flowers, man, because
thank you, bro.
My football team didn't have lights. We didn't have lights this year. And I reached out to this. I coach a Baltimore City football team, and we didn't have lights. The politicians got all the money, but see, we didn't have lights. But we went out there, you talking about racism, we went out to Westminster and we played those white teams, and they had lights and they had chalk and they had concession stands. Like, we practice in the dark, but we the city champions right now. This man helped us get lights. Like, that's who I vote for. And you know, I just real quick, the brother said something, man, like, the best of people come from where I come from. The best of people. But we just don't have no role models, man. We just don't have no role models. This man is a role model. This is only my second time ever on the college campus, and I came to see my friend. So I wish you nothing but the best, brother. I love you.
Thank you, bro. Yo, thank you for being there for them kids, because they need that. They need that. Some of our biggest influences are coaches, not the coaches that exploit, but coaches that's going to fight. This man every day, what's up, and they need that. They need to know. So thank you.
I think we got time for one more question.
Good evening. My name is Lillian Stevens. I'm a transfer student at the SGJC as a strategic communications major. You said that art was your way of exploring other people's thoughts and perceptions. Can you remember the tipping point for you where reading became a way for you to explore other people's experiences? And what did you read about that changed or influenced your understanding?
What was the last part?
Just a second. What did you read that changed or influenced your understanding?
So I talk about that Sister Soldier book a lot, and it wasn't just the content. It was having the ability to see yourself. It's very, very, very important. Black people make up 13% of the population in this country, and we're still like under 1%, have under 1% representation in publishing. So we have an explosion of Black writers now putting out books and content, but this is still brand new. Like, I can, you know, like my wife takes our daughter to the library every week, right? My daughter has a lot of books in the house. They're full of, you know, little Black princesses, but this is new. It's not, you know, when I was coming up, it wasn't a thing. So there's generations and generations and generations of little girls who didn't see a person with skin, a princess with skin the same color as theirs, with a nose like theirs, with hair like theirs. This was like it's relatively a new thing. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of seeing yourself in a book and what that means. Some of the biggest, some of my most proud moments is it's come from a lot of essays I published when I write about stuff that just happened around the city, because I go to these schools and it's always a kid who's like, yo, that was my uncle in the story, or I know that block, or I know that place, or, you know, we say this or we say that. How did it make it here? And they see themselves, and, you know, I haven't been at this for a long time, but there's a whole collection of young people who are choosing or thinking about choosing this as a profession now because they saw someone do it, and that person came to their school, and it may have been the first writer they ever met, or maybe the only one they'll ever meet until they start their careers, and it means something. It's that part for me. There's no television producers and writers and professors walking through our neighborhood when we were growing up, but like we have some now. We got to capitalize on that, and we gotta keep it going.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for everything that you shared tonight.